The night my wife admitted cheating. How one confession destroyed everything we built. Hey, my name's Mark. I'm 35, and I've been with my wife Emily for about 10 years now. We've had our ups and downs, but we've also shared some amazing times together. So when she asked me to go out for a special anniversary dinner, I thought it would be a chance to reflect on our anniversary. I was stoked. We ended up at the same restaurant where I popped the question to her about a decade ago. It was so romantic. The soft glow of the candles, the tinkle of glasses, and all the happy memories made it feel like we were right back in those early days. We talked about all the crazy stuff we'd been through and looked forward to what the future holds. It was a great night. So we were sitting there and I realized, our relationship might have had its ups and downs, but it's always been built on solid ground. We've supported each other through everything, and that's what makes our connection so special. Man, I'm so grateful for all we've shared, and I can't wait to have more years of joy with her. But then I noticed Emily seemed a bit off. I saw it as soon as we sat down, but I just ignored it, I thought maybe she was just exhausted after a long day at work or something. She gave me a smile, but it wasn't her usual warm, genuine smile. It was more like a fake one, you know what I mean? Like she was forcing it or something. Anyway, I tried to push it aside and told myself that it would be okay once we started chatting and the wine kicked in and we forgot about all the stress of everyday life for a while. So we started off with small talk. We chatted about our days and I asked about hers. I told her all about the project I was working on and how it was going well. We also talked about our plans to go to Italy, which we'd been wanting to do for a while. Emily was listening, but I could tell she was distracted. Her eyes weren't meeting mine, and every time I tried to keep the conversation going, she'd look away. Finally, after what seemed like forever, she put down her fork and took a deep breath. "Mark," she said, "there's something I need to tell you." Her voice was shaking, and her eyes were full of tears. "It's not easy for me to say this, but I've been holding it in for too long." She paused for a moment, then continued, "I made a mistake. My heart was racing and my palms were starting to sweat. I tried to stay calm, but inside I was panicking. What had she done? What could she possibly have done that was so bad?" She continued, her voice breaking, "I'm so sorry, Mark. I know it's going to be hard to forgive me, but I need you to know the truth." And with that, she started to cry. My mind was racing. What was she saying? What had she done to make me so upset? But I knew I needed to hear her out. So I took a deep breath and said, "Emily, please, just tell me what happened." And she did. She told me everything, every detail of the mistake she'd made. I was shocked, angry, hurt. But at the same time, I understood why she'd felt she had to hide it from me. I knew how hard it was to admit your mistakes, especially when they were big ones. After she finished, we sat in silence for a few minutes. Then I said, "I understand why you did what you did. I'm not going to lie, it hurts me a lot, but I also understand that you needed to tell me the truth. So I forgive you. But let's move forward from here." We talked for a while after that about what had happened and how we could move forward. It was hard, but we managed to find some common ground and move on. And while it took some time to get over the initial shock and anger, we eventually did. We forgave each other, and we were able to move forward as a stronger couple. I sat there, totally shocked, my brain racing with thoughts of what she could possibly be talking about. A part of me hoped it would be something minor. Maybe she had overspent or was stressed from work. But deep down, I knew it had to be something bigger. Then, in a shaky voice, she said, "I cheated on you." Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. For a second, I couldn't process what she'd said. The world around me seemed to fade into a blur. The restaurant noise faded away, and all I heard was the pounding of my heart pounding in my ears. I looked at her, expecting her to laugh or say it was a joke, but she looked dead serious. This wasn't some sick joke, it was real. In a cracking voice, she continued, "Mark, I'm so sorry, Mark. It happened a few months ago, and I've regretted it ever since. I should have told you sooner, but I just didn't know how." I sat there, at a loss for words. My mind raced with questions. How could she do this to us? After all the years we'd built a life together? How could everything just be thrown away like that? All I could manage to say was, "Why?" Emily looked down at her hands, nervously twisting them nervously. "I don't know," she whispered. "It was a mistake just once, but it haunts me." I couldn't lie anymore, so I had to tell you the truth. The truth was that she loved someone else and had been betrayed her. That night, when they were supposed to celebrate their love, she told him she'd destroyed their love. Suddenly, I got up and left. I needed some space, some air. I walked out of the restaurant without saying a word. I walked for what felt like forever, but it was probably just a few minutes really. As I stepped out of the restaurant into the cold night air, I hardly noticed it. My brain was racing, spinning a million different thoughts at once. I kept replaying Emily's confession in my head. I cheated on you. Those words echoed and echoed, getting heavier with each repeat. How did this happen? How did I miss the signs? Were there even any signs, or did I just ignore them? I wandered the city streets aimlessly, my mind a mess of thoughts. Cars zoomed by, people laughed, but to me the world stopped. Everything changed in an instant. My whole world was turned upside down in a few short minutes. So I ended up at the park. You know, the one where Emily and I used to go in the summers when it was warm. We'd sit under the stars and chat for hours. I sat on the bench, feeling the weight of everything crashing down on me. My chest was tight and I couldn't breathe. I had my phone in my hand, my thumb hovering over Emily's name. She was at the restaurant, all by herself, and I'd left without saying a word. Part of me wanted to call and ask her for answers, but another part didn't want to hear whatever she had to say. How could she make things better? So instead of calling Emily, I dialed my brother Dan. We were always close when we were kids, but life took us in different directions. Now we live on opposite sides of the country and only talk on holidays and birthdays. But that night, I just needed someone to talk to. Someone who could help me make sense of it all. "Hey Dan," I said, my voice sounding a bit shaky. "What's going on, man?" "It's been ages." There was a pause on the other line. "Oh, Mark, what's wrong?" he asked, sounding concerned. I don't even know where to start. I mean, how do you tell your brother that your wife, the love of your life, has just ripped your world apart? I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. "Dan, I don't know what to do." "It's Emily," I said. "She told me she cheated on me." Silence on the other end of the line for a moment. Then, "Are you serious?" he said. "Yeah," I whispered, my eyes fixed on my shoes. "She said it was just a one-time thing, but it doesn't change the fact that she's broken our marriage." Dan sighed. "I'm sorry, man. I know how hard this must be. What are you going to do?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Right now, I just need to take some time to process everything. But I have a feeling this is the end of our relationship." There was another long silence, and I heard him breathing on the phone as he tried to think of what to say. Dan wasn't one to give empty reassurances or sugarcoat things. He was blunt, even brutal at times, but right then I needed honesty even if it hurt. "Mark," he said finally in a low, serious tone. "Take some time to think this through. Don't rush into anything tonight. I know it feels like everything's crumbling right now, maybe it is, but think carefully before you make any decisions." I shook my head, even though he couldn't see me. "Think about what, Dan? She cheated on me. She lied for months. How am I supposed to get past that?" "You don't have to get past it," he replied. "But you need to decide where you stand. Do you want to try and work it out, or is that it? You can't make a decision while you're in shock." I closed my eyes and slouched back on the bench, knowing he was right. I was a mess of emotions, anger, hurt, confusion. At times, I wanted to storm into the restaurant and confront Emily, make her feel the pain I was feeling. Other times, all I wanted to do was disappear and pretend nothing happened. "I don't know what to do," I admitted in a barely audible whisper. "It's just, I feel so lost." Dan sighed. "Listen, man, understand. Whatever happens, don't go back there tonight. Take some time to cool off and stay at a hotel maybe. Think about it before making any decisions." I nodded, even though I was moving on autopilot. I couldn't see Emily tonight, not ready to face her with my emotions still raw. "Yeah, that's what I'll do," I mumbled. After hanging up the call, I just sat there for a bit, looking up at the sky. All the stars were out like they used to be on those summer nights, but everything just felt so different. The sky and the park and all the memories, they were all tainted with that betrayal from Emily. Eventually, I found a hotel nearby and checked in. Then I just collapsed on the bed, lying there and staring at the ceiling, my mind spinning. As I started to feel exhausted, I realized just how tired I really was. I didn't get much sleep that night. Every time I tried to close my eyes, there was Emily's face, her voice telling me she'd cheated. Her pain might have been real, but could her regret make up for the damage she did? Morning came way too soon, with the harsh reality of the situation hitting me. The bed beside me felt so empty, like the emptiness inside me. I had no clue what to do next. I just knew that the life I thought I had was gone, and I didn't know if it would ever come back. Waking up the next day was crazy. I was in a hotel, surrounded by strange walls, lying in a bed I didn't recognize. My head was fuzzy from lack of sleep, and when I opened my eyes, reality hit me like a ton of bricks. All the events from the night before came rushing back. Emily's confession, her betrayal, and that overwhelming feeling of loss. It wasn't a dream, it was my new normal. For a few minutes I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, gathering the strength to face another day. The thought of seeing Emily again made my stomach churn, but I knew I couldn't avoid her. We had to talk, figure out what was going to happen next. As I grabbed my phone from the nightstand, expecting a message from her, I saw a message from my friend Dan instead. "Hey buddy, hope you're doing okay. Let me know if you need anything." I was just staring at my screen, feeling grateful for her concern, but not really knowing what to say. I mean, how can you even explain how you feel? I started typing out a response, then stopped mid-sentence, realizing there weren't any words for how crazy I was inside. Then, all of a sudden, my phone buzzed with a text from Emily asking if we could chat. My heart started racing as I read the message. Part of me wanted to just ignore her, keep her in the dark, but the other part knew we had to talk about it. I knew I didn't want to have the conversation, but I also knew we needed to get it over with and see if there was any future for us. After a bit of a pause, I finally replied, saying I'd meet her at her place in a couple of hours. I hit send before I could think better of it. The idea of going back to our house, the place we had so many great memories, was like a punch to the gut, but I needed answers. I had to understand why things had gone wrong. Driving there felt like walking into a battlefield. The closer I got, the more tense I felt. The streets and neighborhoods we built our lives in now felt tainted. Each corner reminded me of happier times, when I thought our love was eternal. When I finally pulled up to the driveway, I just sat in the car, staring at the door. This used to be my sanctuary, but now it felt hostile. I wasn't sure what I'd find inside. Tears, apologies, more lies. I took a deep breath and got out of the car. My hand hovered over the doorknob as I turned it and walked inside. Emily was sitting there, her eyes all red and puffy from crying. I walked over and she stood up. We just stared at each other for a minute, the room feeling heavy with all the unspoken words. "Mark," she said, her voice shaking. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know what to say because I'd heard those words from her last night." Her apology didn't make the pain go away. Sorry just wasn't enough. So I asked her, "Why did you do it, Emily? Why did you throw away everything?" She wiped her eyes and tried to find the words. "It wasn't about the stuff, Mark. I never meant to hurt you. I don't know. I felt lost. Things between us have been so different lately. My chest hurt. I knew things hadn't been great, but I hadn't realized how far apart we drifted. Is it all my fault then?" I asked. She shook her head. "No, it's not your fault either. It's complicated." "No, it's not your fault," she said, shaking her head quickly. "You're totally responsible for your actions, but things have just been so hard between us. We've been drifting apart, and I don't know what to do about it. I guess instead of talking to you about it, I just went and did something stupid. I mean, I know I messed up, and I'm so sorry. I hate myself for hurting you, and I can't even look at myself in the mirror sometimes. But it was like my emotions just took over, and I didn't think clearly. I was so confused. I ran my hand through my hair, trying to make sense of everything." Her words felt empty, like they didn't really explain the seriousness of what she'd done. "Who was it?" I asked in a low voice. "Who's this person?" Emily looked down at her hands, guilt written all over her face. "It's someone from work," she said. "It only happened once, after an event at the office, and I interrupted her. "I don't want the details, Emily. Just tell me who it was." She nodded, tears silently falling down her cheeks. "I've been so ashamed," she said, her voice trembling. "Mark, I've tried to find a good time to tell you, but every time I see you, I just can't bring myself to do it. I know how much it'll hurt you." "You're right," I said, anger and bitterness in my voice. "This has wrecked me, and I don't know if I'll ever look at things the same again." We sat there in silence for what felt like forever, the weight of everything we'd done hanging in the air. I could see the pain in her eyes, and I wanted to reach out and say we could fix it all, but I just wasn't sure it was possible. I didn't know if we could recover from this. "I need some time," I said finally, standing up. "I have no idea what to do, Em. I don't think I can ever forgive you, or even want to, but I need space to sort things out." She nodded, wiping her tears away. "Take all the time you need," she whispered. "I'll be here when you're ready. I'd do anything to fix this." I didn't say anything else. There was nothing more to say. I grabbed my keys and left the house like the night before. As I drove away, the reality of what we'd done weighed heavily on me. Could we ever move past this? Would things be the same? Or was it all ruined? I didn't know what to say, but one thing I did know for sure. Nothing would ever be the same again. After leaving the house, I just drove around for what felt like forever. The streets all looked the same. The familiar places were tainted with heavy thoughts racing around in my head. Every turn, every little thing reminded me of Emily. She was everywhere in my mind, woven into every street corner in town. I couldn't get away from it, I couldn't outrun her. Then, somehow, I ended up at an old friend's place. It wasn't planned, but there I was. Somehow, I knew I needed to talk, so I decided to see Jake. Jake's been my best buddy since college, and even though we don't hang out as much as we used to, I still trust him. He's seen me at my worst, through breakups and job loss, and all the lows in my life. This time, though, was different. I sat in the car for a bit, thinking about whether to go in or just leave. What was I even going to say? How could I explain something I didn't even fully understand? But before I knew it, Jake came out, his face all lit up when he saw me. "Mark," he shouted, walking towards my car. "What's up? I haven't seen you in forever." I managed to smile and got out of the car. "Yeah, it's been a while. Sorry for showing up like this." Jake waved off my apology. "No biggie, you're always welcome." He looked at me closer, noticing my mood was off. "You okay? You seem..." I hesitated, not sure how to start. How can you tell someone their whole world just fell apart? But then again, if anyone can handle it, it'd be Jake. He's always the one who tells it how it is, no matter how hard. "So, Emily cheated on me, man." I finally blurted out, the words heavy as they left my lips. Saying them out loud didn't make them any easier, and I still felt raw and hurt. Jake's eyes went wide with shock. "Whoa, dude. I'm so sorry to hear that. When did it happen?" "Last night," I said, leaning against Jake's car. "We were at dinner on our anniversary, and she just dropped the bomb on me." "Man, that's crazy," Jake murmured, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know what to say." I nodded, swallowing hard. "Me neither. I'm just lost right now. I have no clue what to do." He gestured towards the house. "Come inside. Let's talk about it." We walked inside, and he grabbed us each a beer from the fridge. I didn't really want one, but I took it anyway, hoping the cold drink would numb the pain. "So, what do you think? You think you'll try to work it out, or is this it?" Jake asked. I looked at the beer bottle in my hand and watched the condensation roll down the glass. "I dunno," I said quietly. "Part of me just wants to call it quits. How can I ever trust her again after what she did? How can I even look at her the same?" Jake nodded in understanding. "Yeah, I get it. Trust is key. What good's it if we don't have it?" "But then," I continued, my voice cracking a bit, "there's another side of me that just doesn't want to give up on all we've built. We've been through so much together, Jake, for so long. I can't just forget all that." Jake took a sip from his beer and sat back in his seat. 10 years is a big deal, but you can't keep going through life just because of the past, man. You gotta figure out where you stand, and if forgiveness is even possible. The word forgiveness hung heavy in the air. Could I really let go of what she did and start over? Could we build trust again? I wasn't sure. The truth be told, it seemed impossible at the moment. "You talked to her yet?" asked Jake. I admit I did go to the house, and we talked, but it wasn't very clear. She apologized for what happened, saying it was a misunderstanding, but that didn't change anything. Jake just nodded and said that it wouldn't, but if I could forgive her, to take some time and think about it. Don't jump to conclusions, because this is our lives, and we need to be sure. I knew he was right, even if I wanted an answer, to end things or move on. I wasn't quite ready. I felt hurt, angry, and confused. So, for the next few days, I stayed in a hotel, avoiding my house and Emily while sorting out my emotions. Every morning, I woke up feeling different. Sometimes I was mad, thinking leaving her was the only way. Other times, I missed her so much it physically hurt, and I couldn't imagine life without her. I was thinking about all the good times we had, our wedding, the holidays, little moments of happiness. But no matter how hard I tried to remember, that betrayal always seemed to overshadow them. I kept asking myself the same questions. Was love strong enough to get over it? Could we fix what was broken? I talked to Dan again, hoping for some clarity, but he gave me the same advice as before. Take your time, don't rush into a decision. It wasn't just time that was the problem. Every day that passed without a resolution felt like a part of my life slipping away. Work started to suffer, I couldn't focus. I didn't care about things that once excited me. My friends noticed something was wrong, tried to reach out, but I just pushed them away. Then there was Emily. She kept calling and texting, begging me to talk to her, to come back home. to deal with it together. I knew she was hurting too, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. Every time I heard her voice or saw her name on my phone, the pain came back full force. I tried to avoid her for as long as I could, but eventually I knew we needed to have a talk. We just couldn't keep avoiding each other forever. Somehow we had to figure out where we were going from there. The day I finally made up my mind to meet her, it felt like I was going to a funeral. It felt like our relationship was ending. I didn't know what the talk would be about, but I knew it wouldn't be easy. We went to a coffee shop in the suburbs. It was a neutral place where we didn't usually go. The atmosphere was calm and away from all the places we usually hang out, where there were too many memories. When I got there, Emily was already sitting at a corner table, fiddling with her coffee cup like she was nervous. She stood up when she saw me, her eyes puffy and red like she hadn't slept in days. "Mark," she said, her voice soft and full of emotion. "Thanks for meeting with me." I just nodded, sitting there across from her, feeling the weight of the conversation settling on me. "We need to talk," I said, and she nodded back, tears already welling up in her eyes. "I know," she said. "I've been thinking about it a lot, and I want to do whatever it takes to fix this. I don't want to lose you, Mark." I just stared at her, my heart heavy with what she said. She was begging for another shot, and part of me wanted to give her that. But another part, the part that still hurt so deep, wasn't so sure if it was possible. "I don't know, Em," I said softly. "I just don't think I can trust you anymore." Her face crumbled and tears started to fall. "Please," she whispered, "just give us another chance." I took a deep breath, the weight of the decision crushing me. This was it, the moment I'd been dreading, the moment where I had to choose between saving our marriage or letting it go. Sitting across from Emily at the cafe, I felt the weight of the decision I had to make. She was begging me to give our marriage another shot, to let her make things right. Seeing her tear-stained face made my heart hurt even more. "I know I've hurt you deeply, Mark," she said, her voice shaking as she fought back the tears. "And I can't take it back, but I want to be better to make things right between us. I'd do anything to prove it. Please don't give up on us," she pleaded. Her words echoed in my head, mixed with memories of the good times and the bad, laughter and late-night talks when we forgot the world around us. But those memories were tainted now by her betrayal. Could we ever go back? Could I ever look at her again without feeling the pain? "I've been mulling this over for days," I started, my voice a soft whisper, "trying to figure out whether we can forgive each other and build what we had before. I don't know, Em. I really don't." She leaned in, her eyes full of desperation. "But we can, Mark," she said. "It won't be easy, but it can be done." She said she'd go to therapy. "Together, we'll rebuild our relationship bit by bit." She continued, "Can't imagine life without you. Love you," she added with conviction. Her words touched me deeply. Love felt so fragile now, like something that seemed eternal but can break under pressure. "Love you too," I replied, my voice shaking with emotion. More than anything, but it hurt too much for me. "Don't think we can fix this," I added sadly. She was sobbing. Her shoulders shook as she hid her face in her hands. Hearing her crying twisted something inside me. I wanted to comfort her, but at the same time, I was trying to understand all the emotions that were going through me. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to hurt her, but I also didn't want to ignore my own feelings. As time went by, it became clearer that this wasn't just a one-time thing. It was going to affect our whole relationship. Could I forgive her and move forward with the knowledge that she did something wrong? Could we build our trust back up, or was it going to be broken forever? I thought about all the times after she told me, the sleepless nights, the anger, the confusion. I wish things had been different. Maybe if she had talked to me first, we could have worked through our problems together. But now, I wasn't sure if that was possible. "I've been trying so hard to picture a future where we can get past this," I said, my voice cracking under the weight of my feelings. "But every time I think about it, I just keep coming back to the same place. I just don't know if I can forgive you or trust you anymore." Her face fell, and the spark in her eyes started to flicker, like a dying fire. "Please, Mark," she begged. "Don't say that." I took a deep breath and tried to gather my strength. "I still care about you, Emily," I went on. "I will always care about you. But right now, I don't think we can be together like we were before." She started to cry harder, but I pressed on, determined to say what needed to be said. Emily's crying filled the cafe, and it broke my heart all over again. I didn't want to end things, but part of me thought we could fix them. But then, when I looked at her, I realized that letting go was the only way. "I'm sorry," I said, getting up from the table, but I think this is it. She didn't stop me as I walked away. It was a heavy decision, but for the first time, I felt clear. I made a choice, and though it hurt, it was right. After that, I started rebuilding my life slowly. It wasn't easy. Every morning was hard, and quiet times were the worst. I thought about her and what we had lost. But with time, the pain became manageable. It didn't go away, but it became like a scar, reminding me that I'd healed. I threw myself headfirst into work, hung out with friends more, and started to rediscover some of the parts of me that had gotten lost during my time with Emily. Slowly, I started to see a future without her, a future where I could be happy again. Then, a few months after we had our last talk, I ran into Dan at the grocery store. We hadn't talked much since we broke up, because he'd always been there for me and given me space, so I figured he might not want to talk about it. But when I saw him, he gave me a warm smile and asked how I was doing. "I'm okay," I said with a smile back. "It's hard, but I'm figuring things out." Dan nodded and clapped me on the shoulder. "That's awesome, man," he said. "You deserve it." As I walked away, I knew he was right. I did deserve to be happy and loved, and my journey wasn't over yet. A future awaited me, full of possibilities I hadn't even thought of yet. For the first time in a while, I felt like I was ready to move forward. If you like such stories, then be sure to subscribe to the channel. It will be the biggest support for me.